Okay, so today's episode is going to be a straightforward roundhouse discussion just between Dr. Arvin and myself. I have prepared 5 questions here that have been asked in my social media, and I think one of them was just from myself to see what your thoughts are. I mean,
Okay.
like
Okay.
we do these discussions quite on and off just between the two of us in private, so we just bounce off ideas. I think the last time I spoke to Arvin was regarding the Romanian deadlift and stiff leg deadlift in terms
Yeah.
of knee angle bend and how
Mm,
to
mm,
target muscles or the difference between the two, right?
mm.
Okay, so today's roundhouse discussion, let's just dive right into it. The first question on the list is: does improving technique of exercise be considered as progressive overload?
Okay. Now, um, I think if you're talking about someone who is new or intermediate, lah, even it's intermediate because sometimes intermediates are being introduced to the new movements, right?
Yeah,
Now, I'll take myself as an example. So the bench press. I mean, I've bench pressed for a very long time,
yeah,
but never have I actually paid attention to the technicality of a bench press.
okay.
Means I've never thought about foot placement. I've never thought about arching. I've never
Mm-hmm.
thought about hand placement. Never thought about scapular retraction prior to actually engaging in powerlifting. And that's a that's a good 16 years of my lifting.
Okay,
And with that being said, I was already able to probably get like 3-4 reps of 120 at that point. But the thing is, of course, there was no pause. It was not to the chest. It was probably, but it was like a probably at best like a butchered spotto.
okay,
Okay, at that point, and until I picked up powerlifting, then I realized that there's all these technical points and methods that you have to use in order for you to up your bench press.
okay,
And I would definitely say, with that being said, I got to improve my bench press quite significantly at that point.
okay.
Never did I imagine that at some point I would actually have a gym PR of 155 kilos
Mm,
with a pause.
okay,
So yeah, technicality when it comes to lift, the technical points to lift actually improves the way you actually use particular muscles, leverage yourself to a certain point. You're talking about even like deadlifts. Okay, you can see someone who has technical precision when it comes to a sumo deadlift versus someone who's just going wide stance conventional.
mm-hmm,
Someone who's more upright and they wedge their hip properly, you see them lift a lot more weight compared to someone who's actually got a much poorer wedge. Someone who doesn't have not honed their like bottom position
mm,
and all these things. So if you ask me, yes, technicality does really matter when you're talking about progression because it allows you to progress further. And what is progressive overload, right? A lot of people think progressive overload is just adding a bunch of weights
mm,
and lifting heavier and heavier. No, actually, no. Progressive overload simply means for a given stimulus at some particular point, in order to maintain the level of stimulus, you need to either add reps, add weights, or whatever it is. So, for instance, if say a 200 kilo deadlift for say 5 reps is an RP 8 today,
mm,
and say 6 weeks down the road, once you've trained pretty much, it goes down to RP 7, 6.5.
yeah,
So in order for you to maintain the stimulus, you either have to go up to maybe 6 reps, or you maybe have to go up to 2 or 2.5 or 205 in order for you to maintain that RP8. That is progressive overload. That is how you means your body has adapted to the previous stimulus. Now you have to move on in order for you to maintain that level of stimulus. So if your technical ability allows you to drop the RP because you're more efficient, your leverages are better, technically allows you to put on more weights in order to maintain the level of stimulus. So if you ask me, yes,
okay,
technicality does help in you to progress further.
okay. I have a few questions with that, but just to clarify a few things beforehand is that number one, you said that progressive overload is not so much going past the current stimulus. Well, actually, now that you explained it the way you did is, so let me get it straight. This is the current level of stimulus. It drops down after you get better,
Mhm.
and therefore, in order to match the same stimulus before, that process is what you refer to as progressive overload.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so it's not the stimulus then go more and then go more.
No, no.
Okay, all right. So that's clarified there and then. Okay, good. We both agree on that. Another question is that I think whatever that you said makes sense, but I'm gonna frame it in a different way
Okay.
or a different perspective, or perhaps from a different point of view that this question may have been asked from. So I think what the person was trying to say is that does improving on the technique at the same weight that you did before, does it count as progressive overload? In a sense that probably you can still hypertrophy simply because even if you're lifting the same amount of reps, the same amount of weight, but your technique just got better. So maybe the person thinks that his ability to feel the muscle more with an adjustment of technique has initiated a new stimulus on the area of muscle he's training. So has that been a trigger or catalyst towards progressive overload?
I think the question that I would want to ask further is when you talk about technical improvement or technicality, right?
Yeah.
Has that technical improvement made your lift easier? That's the question.
Okay.
Do you feel like you're lifting the weight much better? Do you feel like you have much better strength? Say at the bottom position, probably you were struggling at the fourth or fifth rep before this, and now you know at the fourth or fifth rep you still feel like you can go now 2 more reps because you have better ability to get out of the bottom because you're staying in position properly. You're probably making sure your chest goes up as high, at the same time as when your hip actually moves towards the bar. You know, so when you have those improvements, basically you're not being folded over.
Mm-hmm.
You have those improvements because you see people who are lifting, right? The first 2 3 reps is fine, then you see the fourth one they start getting a bit more horizontal and it gets heavier and heavier. You see that your back musculature is giving up before your leg musculature is giving up, so you end up being folded over. But
Yeah.
now say that because of your improved technique, your improved probably back strength as well, it allows you to stay more upright till the fifth rep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, technically speaking, same number of reps, same number of weights, but you'll realize that getting out of the bottom position becomes easier,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So with that being said, it is a form of progressive overload in the sense that now what used to be difficult at the fifth rep, it is not as difficult. And
Mm-hmm.
what you will have to do to probably get back to the position where you have to adapt to the difficulty level, you probably go to the sixth or seventh rep
Mm-hmm.
in order for you to feel again the back fatiguing further.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, you're still progressively overloading simply because of your technical proficiency, the rating of perceived exertion has actually dropped
Mm.
because you don't feel as difficult anymore at the fifth rep.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what the technical aspect has done is it has made you more efficient. Being more efficient itself drops the RPE.
Mm.
Correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're efficient, because you're good at that position now. So in order for you to make it difficult again, you have to probably add a rep, add a pause, add some load, one of it. You know, you can tempo it to make it difficult. Those kind of things. So there are many ways to make it difficult again.
So what about the if someone makes the argument that uh, perhaps say something along the lines of bicep curls, he or she has altered their technique or
Mhm.
made an improvement on their technique, and they've done the same amount of weight, the same amount of reps, but their feedback is that they feel that it's more pump in this way.
Okay, so yeah, so that means at the end of the day, you still have to go back to the definition of progressive overload.
Okay.
The definition of progressive overload is actually you are altering one of the parameters, like I said, load, rep, tempo, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
in order to maintain a level of stimulus. So in this case, we're talking about hypertrophy, we're talking about RP 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
Okay. So at any given point, if whatever you're doing has dropped below RP 8 for the same load, okay, because say your technical efficiency,
Mm.
okay, if it has dropped below, it has become easier because that you feel, of course, you're feeling better muscle pumps. It could be because you're actually keeping, probably you're not swinging as much anymore. Okay, you're probably doing a stricter curl that allows you to use your bicep a lot more. All right, so that is fine. Those things actually makes your exercise efficient. It improves your bottom position where you actually, I mean, or your sticking point where you're actually the weakest anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So because of you being stricter, maybe temporarily it becomes a lot harder. Then
Mm-hmm.
eventually you get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you know, like people say, right, you're as strong as your weakest point.
Yep.
So if you stop swinging, of course it's going to be difficult initially. Then eventually you will adapt to it, and then of course, and that also leads to better pumps, better growth, better stimulus, more strength.
Okay.
So yeah, so at the end of the day, you still have to go back to the definition of what progressive overload is, which is to maintain a level of stimulus by altering any one of those parameters.
Okay. Fair
Okay.
enough. Fair enough. So great. Now that we've cleared that question, let's move to the next question first. Before we circle back to anything that you may have missed. Um, yeah. So there's another question: is I don't like doing more than 10 reps for training. Can I do 5 to 10 reps for all my exercise and still see growth overall? What are the downsides to doing just 6 to 10 repetitions?
Want to give your take first on this?
Um, Personally, yeah, no one wants to do like 20 to 30 reps on the leg press. It's just, it's just like, yuck, yuck. You want to vomit just thinking of it, right? And while I think that doing 6 to 8 reps is a lot more doable and nicer, to be honest, there's nothing, there's nothing like more rewarding than being able to lift a heavy weight for like 6 reps, 8 reps. Just it just feels strong. But I feel like in the long term solution of things, right? Um, your I don't know whether it's me or my age, but the joints, the tendons, they all eventually start taking a beating much earlier on, much quicker too. And if the thing is for hypertrophy, at least, right, we want to be able to continue training for as long as we can in our mesocycle before we ever need to take like a deload per se. So ideally, same goes with strength training. If you can keep progressing for weeks on end before ever needing a deload, that's like peak, right? That's like the best case scenario that we can all afford as lifters. No one wants to like take a rest day. No one wants to sit down and have like be itchy and like, oh, I need to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym. I want to lift. Um, so in that way, I would think that's one of the downsides of uh, sticking with a very not say very, but sticking with the lower end of the rep ranges for hypertrophy. Uh, However, like someone would make the argument, oh, but I'm doing powerlifting, right? Why do I need to do? I do 5 reps, 3 to 5 reps on my main lifts, and I do 6 to 10 on uh, my accessories, right? Because ultimately my end goal is to get strong and be strong. But even for powerlifters, accessories, I would still program at least probably 2 to 4 exercises where they're going a bit more on the higher rep range.
Mm.
It's simply for that purpose as well as my first point, which I made. You don't want your weak point. You like what Arvin said just now. You are as strong as your weakest link, and you don't want your weak link to be your smaller muscles like your biceps and triceps. So if you're going hard on those muscle groups, your joints in those muscle groups, right? In your curling or extension accessory, it is going to affect your ability or your recovery ability, and it will potentially move onto your main lifts as well. The last thing you want to do is like you can't bench not because your chest and your delts are sore, but because your triceps are just so fatigued. Your tricep joint is so like damaged or beaten from your heavy 3 or 4 sets of 6 to 10 reps rope extension, things like that, right?
Mm.
So yeah, and last point I think I would insert is that the for certain exercises or certain muscle groups, say they would get a better stimulation. While the theory of yes, muscles can grow from 5 to 30 reps, we are talking about the most efficient way possible to execute or get the desired results we want. So that includes recovery, intensity, frequency. Like if you're doing uh, 2 sets of 15 to 20 reps on the bicep curls just to finish your workout, that sounds a lot greater than doing another 3 to 4 sets of bicep curls heavy just after you've probably benched press, deadlift, or squatted heavy. You at the end of the day, there's just a certain like level you will reach where you want to be trying your best to be as efficient as possible and take all these factors into account.
Right. Those
Yeah,
are actually extremely valid points.
yeah.
I totally agree with everything that you just said. And I think we concur on a lot of things when it comes to uh, lifting at a particular rep range. Now,
Mhm.
just to add a few uh, notes on that, you have to understand when you're lifting between the reps of like 5 to 10 repetitions, right? Yes, the stimulus for hypertrophy is still present. The stimulus for strength is still present, and somewhat minor amount of stimulus for the muscle endurance.
Mhm.
Okay, but like what you correctly said, the tendons, ligaments, and the joint structures like the cartilage, they don't recover as fast as the muscle per se, simply because of the amount of blood supply that it goes to these structures and how fast they metabolize anyway.
Mhm.
They are slow metabolizing components, so they take a longer period of time to actually recover from. So
Mhm.
whenever you're lifting loads which are north of 75%, when you're getting the 5 reps, it's already like 87.5%. If you're talking about 1 rep from failure or two failure. And it's not the best idea when you're talking about your accessories,
Mhm.
simply because some muscles, like say for instance, the middle deltoid,
Mhm.
or okay, the middle portion of the deltoid is a small muscle. Now, if you're going to lift a load that you can probably do, say 8 repetitions, there's going to be
Mhm.
a whole lot of swinging, simply because that load is going to be pretty heavy. Okay, you might get the first 1 to 3 reps properly well done. Then eventually you start feeling like it's a bit too heavy for that muscle. And
Mhm.
eventually you'll probably have a whole lot of swinging before you can, and you are probably going to swing past the sticking point just to get the rep done.
Mhm.
And that's not a good idea. So these smaller muscles on the also, they require a longer period of time under tension in order for them to gain a significant amount of stimulus. All right. It has been shown that some muscles actually respond to being under load for more than say 15-20 seconds.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
right. So they require that the period of time of, like, say, for you're talking about lateral raises again, you're talking about anywhere between 12 to 20 repetitions. Using
Mhm.
a lighter load, you get a better pump. Okay. You get more vascular restriction because of the muscles getting pumped more and more and more. So the smaller vessels are being occluded. It gives a bit more anaerobic situation and gives a bit more metabolites in the area. And that allows the muscle to actually adapt to hypertrophic stimulus. All right.
Okay.
You could be a power lifter. Like
Mhm.
what you correctly said, the job of, I mean, the sport of powerlifting is about 1 rep maxes.
Yep.
But in order for you to boost your 1 rep max, you need your stabilizers to actually get stronger with you. Now, if you're going to continuously train very heavy loads, there is an off chance you're going to injure these muscles pretty early, simply because they are really small.
Mhm.
Okay. And they do not withstand high amounts of load like a bench press.
Mhm.
If you're talking about like face pulls and extra rotations and rear delt exercises, unless you're talking about doing like rows, if you want to isolate the rear delt, you're not going to lift a lot of weights. If you are, there's a whole lot of swinging and cheating that's going to go through,
Yep. Correct.
which is not the best idea when you're trying to isolate the muscle and grow that particular muscle per se. All right. Now,
Mhm.
the next thing that you want to think about is, it is not fun to continuously lift very heavy loads for like that repetition. Now, think about it. If you have done squats for say 5 reps, then you go on to, like, say for any, and say your squat is a 200 kilo squats for 5 reps. Okay, that means your leg press is about 300 kilos.
Mhm.
Okay,
Precisely.
your leg press about 300 kilos. Now try and do 3 sets of that for 10 reps. That's not fun. And
It's
let's
not.
say we throw in an RDL after that. Your RDL, if you're doing a 200 kilos a squat, your RDL would be around 170, 180 kilos. Now let's talk about another 10 reps or 8 reps of that. Okay, you can see that eventually what's going to happen is your other supporting musculatures are going to start failing one by one.
Mhm.
All right. So you say instead of doing RDL, you do a leg curl. Now a
Mhm.
leg curl for 10 reps, I don't know for you, for me, is the second last split of the entire stack.
Mhm.
Okay, it is not fun to do the second last plate for the entire stack for 3 sets.
Mhm.
Okay, it gets very, very fatiguing, and you end up with, and what you correctly say, you don't actually feel the pain much in the muscles. You feel at the end of the muscles, which is where the tendon units are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you either feel it right up near your butt region or at your knee region, wherever. And most of the time for leg curls, it's going to be at the knee region.
Mm.
And probably the first set feels okay, the second set feels a bit iffy, and the third set you feel like not so nice anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go back home, and the next day you feel like it's really sore at the ends, and that means you actually have successfully strained the tendon.
Correct.
You know, so
Yep.
and that is going to increase your recovery time. So, with that being said, you want to be a bit more smarter with your training program so that you can use a mix of lower reps, mid range reps, and higher reps, depending on the exercises, in order to stagger the recovery time.
Mm.
You know, so you have to think of it from that perspective. So, you ask me, I personally feel like what you just said, you should be doing a varied range of motion. Some exercises, yes, like my squats, I do probably for like 3 to 6 reps. Then I move
Mm-hmm.
on to leg presses, which is somewhere between like 8 to 10 reps. Then go on to leg extensions, which are anywhere between 12 to 15 reps.
Mm.
You know, so in that way, I'm giving my muscle different levels of stimulus. And again, it really depends on how strong you are. The stronger you are, the more you lift, and the more you lift, you have to understand. You might think that the uh, 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 say for a person who's 60 kilos, okay,
Mm-hmm.
or 66 kilos or 67 kilos, say your leg extensions are 200 pounds. The guy
Mm-hmm.
who comes in and lifts who is 100 kilos is probably going to do a full stack for 12 to 15 repetition, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a whole, there's a lot more load compared to someone who's 60 kilos. So the stronger you are, the more you lift, of course, again, depending on how strong you are, it gets more and more fatiguing, and the risk of injury increases with that. So if you're going to play with 6 to 10 reps, that's going to be a lot of load being distributed throughout the entire training program. And like what you said, towards the end of the training program, that is not fun. Okay. And it's going to be very, very ineffective to do 6 to 10 reps at the 2 hour point mark. Okay.
Correct.
It is not going to be effective. You are going to risk injury. And if you see the time points at which injuries do happen, it's at those time points. You know, you pass your 90 minutes time point, you're starting to get fatigued already, and that's where your mind is not in place. Even with the best music, you don't really feel it
Yep.
anymore. All of these things can happen, and and all these injuries normally just a slip of a moment, and bam, you pick up an injury. So these are things you want to be smart about. I would definitely still consider being a training with a very rep range, just in order for you to stagger the recovery time and get stimulus from different endpoints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in that regard, I think it just ties back down to what I said just now. In you just you want to be able to train as long as you possibly can in your
Yeah.
mesocycle before ever needing to deload, because with anything, if gains is your goal, whether in strength or hypertrophy, um the, you want to be able to do it as long as you can, right?
Like,
And
don't get us wrong. We're not saying that you can't train between 6 to 10 reps and get
yeah.
the gains you can. But we've been in this game long enough to tell you that there is a downside to that.
Mm.
And we're just telling you to, if you're going to go down this route, get ready for what comes ahead of you. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
so you just have to be prepared to understand the trade-offs, and if it's something that you can live with, if you're okay with taking a deload potentially 4 weeks earlier on as opposed to 4 weeks later, yeah, cool. Or maybe you're someone who travels a lot. You got to travel every X amount of weeks, and maybe that's how your program is planned in such a way.
Mhm,
So you train hard for 4 to 6 weeks, and you you're going to travel for whatever reasons, work or holiday. Then you know you're going to take 1 week off, or you won't have access to a gym for at least a better part of that week.
mhm.
So you've planned your deload then and there.
Yeah, that works.
So it's all about seeing what works for you, what really works for you.
Mm,
We're not in any way saying that, yes, the science says this, it's best if you can do this. We're just saying that it would be optimal and efficient to look at it this way.
mhm.
But that's the extent of what we can produce at a given moment.
Yep.
Because for those of you that have been following us for a very long time, you know that when we talk about anything, we don't say that you should do this. We never tell you that you should always, or we never disembark our own beliefs onto you. We merely share our own respective beliefs, what we are currently have read, know, or perhaps even in Dr. Arvin's case published, uh, that is what we do. So just keep that in mind.
All
We
right,
want
let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's move on. How Question number three: how important is ab training in the off season for powerlifters and bodybuilders? Well, if you can look at Dr. Arvin, he'd say it's not that important.
I'm trying to think when's the last time I trained my abs.
Okay, okay. All right. So what do you think?
um, I think I do a whole lot of ab training with all the lifts that I do. Uh,
Mm,
because I need to brace through practically everything, you know.
mm,
But yes, doing if you're talking about hypertrophy, like any other
mhm,
muscle, if your goal is to hypertrophy those muscles, then you do
mhm.
have to spend time training them, you know.
Okay.
But I think between powerlifters and bodybuilders, I think the aesthetics of the look matters more to the bodybuilders.
Mhm,
I'm not saying powerlifters don't have to do it. Some
mhm,
powerlifters do. I don't.
mhm,
Okay. And everyone still will have that 8 packs or 6 packs behind whatever layer of fat that you have. If you don't, then you can see all of it. If you do, then you see lesser of it. Okay. But
mhm,
if you're talking about the aesthetics for a bodybuilder, I think a well-grown abdominal section is going to be vital for a point on stage. Again, that also depends. Don't go overboard, then you become a bit too broad.
mhm,
So I think you can answer that a bit better compared to me. What
mhm.
would you do as a bodybuilder?
Mm. Okay, I think personally for me, and I think this would apply to many of the off-season people. Uh, it is necessary. It is necessary, but perhaps not at the frequency most people would think.
Would you do
But
like 10, 15 sets of abs a week or
oh
something?
God, no, God no.
No, right?
Probably half of that.
Yeah, and you have seen Luke's abs.
Yeah. So I,
Yeah,
I would do half of that.
yeah.
Realistically, I I would do I do like probably every other day, two, perhaps three sets, or sometimes in one day I'll have two ab exercises, two sets each. But that really is a matter of being able to still have that abdominal control,
Mm-hmm.
because doing ab work allows for better vacuums and
Ah,
things like that. Because in the off season, when you push food really hard and really high, it's easy for your intestines and your stomach to just expand,
mm,
uh, and you lose that level of trunk control that you need for your posing later when you step on stage.
correct.
So very much like how a lot of people in the off season don't eat fruits and vegetables, it's necessary and very very important. I see a lot. I used to be one of those people that didn't eat vegetables or fruits in the off season, but now I really really do make an effort to eat as much as I can, because when you transition from off season to prep, the last thing you want to do, or the number one thing you want to make sure of, is that you have the least amount of obstructions or variables, like making your prep harder, and that goes to everything, right? So if you already develop the habit in your off season of constantly eating your vegetables, your fruits, getting your fiber in, doing your cardio, again, cardio is super important, practicing your posing, practicing your vacuum, it's just going to make your transition into prep so much easier.
Mm,
Like imagine if you hadn't developed these habits and you're going to try and develop them in a phase of your training where it's supposedly very difficult. It's just going to be a very tough journey for you. So at work, I do train them in the off season. I think it's important for anyone, regardless of whether you're a powerlifter or a bodybuilder, to have at work incorporated in there.
all right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think most of the time people say that, oh, especially for powerlifters, they say that I don't need to do any direct ab work. I do my squat, bench, and deadlift that has a huge emphasis on abdominal work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, what do you think is about that statement?
Um, Personally speaking, I think there's no correct answer to this. I think it really depends. It goes back to the person itself. But I've seen powerlifters who actually still do some ab works. They still do some ab rollouts. They still do some crunches or some knee raises to make sure that they do train the ab muscles. And I think it will help for people who feel like the engagement of the abs is not as great, especially when it comes to feeling what the abs is like. So I will say that, personally speaking, I have no preference. I'm okay if you want to do it. I'm okay if you don't want to do it. You know.
Mm.
So I think I leave that to the individual.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Next question is number 4. Realistically, how many days can one person train in a row before needing quote unquote a rest day?
Mm.
Can't someone just train 7 days a week if volume is managed? I feel like this is a very straightforward answer, but okay.
Um, from personal experience, training 7 days a week is the one that prevented me from growing. Uh, then some gym bro came up to me and says like, you're training way too frequent. You're not getting enough rest days. You're not giving your body enough recovery time in order for you to grow. And he asked me to drop it down to like 5 times a week, and boom, I saw my first growth spurt, like a big growth spurt after that. Muscular wise, not fat. You know. So I really do think that you do have to pay attention to your recovery time. You do have to have a little bit. It's not really a downtime. I think it's more like so that you get enough time, a little longer period between training program. I mean, trainings, your training days. So if you ask me the question, to that question, I would say I do 2 days. I've done 3 days before when things are a bit pressed. It means I have something that I have to do, say on a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I will get training in,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would probably push Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But from experience, I would say that, especially at this age of mine, I feel like 2 days is the best for me because I need that extra day in between for my shoulders to heal up a little bit
Mm-hmm.
before I go in for another pressing day on Thursday, which is for me today.
Mm-hmm.
So I need that Wednesday's break in order for me to recover for the Thursday's press. Though I pressed on Monday, I need that Tuesday, Wednesday kind of, because Tuesday I do squats, and squats does have a little bit of shoulder engagement that you require.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, if you're holding the bar on your back, your
Mm-hmm.
shoulder does get a little triggered if you have iffy shoulders.
Yeah.
You know? So I need that extra day in between in order for me to recover. So really, again, really depends on the person. You can go up to 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
all right, without needing a rest day in between. But to me, frankly, as the longest I've done training or training people, that's as long as I allow them to train without a rest day.
Okay.
And then I will tell them to take a break in between, and then you can come in for another 2 days after that and take Sunday off. So for me, ideally speaking, 4 to 5 times a week of training, weight training, is more than sufficient for you to reap all the benefits that you need from weight training. I would spend the other 2 days, if you really want to train, go and do cardio, go for a walk, get an 8,000 step walk or something like that in between, to just get your body some time to recover and recuperate.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I share the same sentiment. 2 days on, 1 day off. But then again,
How
for
much a week do you train anyway?
my microcycle is 6 days of training, 4 days of rest. So 10 days
Okay,
lah.
you do that 10-day wave kind of situation.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't, you don't follow a week.
No, no.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
because
I totally understand that. I think you've spoken about this before, right? Like
yeah,
sometimes it's just better not to follow the week basis and just go on a couple of days. Like, so 10 days for you is a 10-day cycle every single time.
yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
okay, makes sense.
I feel like the applications of that tend to be a bit more favorable for individuals of my level,
Ah,
which is not a very high level. I'm not in any way saying that I'm very high. I'm just saying that given circumstances of like what my this is what my coach and I worked on is that I need to bring up my lagging body parts, and given that when I train, I also train with a relatively high effort. So mine is anywhere between 0 to 2 reps in reserve,
mm,
and
mm.
because I push very hard on my training sessions, my recovery time needs at least a little bit more. And it's okay for me if I, like, for example, the muscle groups which I'm not emphasizing at the moment, I don't have to hit them as frequently.
I see.
So my leg days will be every I'll do one leg day, and then my next leg day will be anywhere between 4 to perhaps even 10 days later.
Ah, okay. I can understand that. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. That's fair enough.
yeah. So um, for me, it's 2 days on, 1 day off, and if I'm really pushing it, I'll have 3 days on, 1 day off, just in case I won't be able to attend on that particular day for training because I'm caught up with work or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I would always structure it in such a way that the 2 days that I do, it'll be as per usual my all out, and on the third day, I will try to put in something not as taxing,
Mm,
so like maybe smaller muscle groups like my delts, my biceps, my triceps, my calves, anything along those lines. I'll put it on the third day, and then the fourth day I take a full rest and just aim to get my steps in. But to answer the question of why not train 7 days in a row, well, realistically, it's if you have the time, that's cool. But even if you managed volume, like you said you did like 2 sets every exercise every single day for like 5 exercises, even then you would still probably not make as much gains as what Arvin said. Sticking to resting every 2 or even 3 days after workout, it's best if you can really push, take that effort closer to failure on 2 days, and then take the third day off, as opposed to just going moderate intensity like a 3 RIR every day, 7 days a week.
mm,
You know what I mean?
mm, mm. Again,
Okay.
I think it's to each their own, lah.
Yeah.
But if you guys were confused about what me and Luke were talking about, it's like I follow a 7 day cycle. That means I follow the week. Luke, on the other hand, is using the day cycle. So he has a 10 day cycle instead of a 7 day cycle. So he's whatever he trains on Monday doesn't repeat on Monday again.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work that way. So he's, of course, you have more mental gymnastics in that sense. In that sense, but of course, if you plan it up properly,
Mm-hmm.
then everything is on a roll. You see.
Yeah.
So for some of us, like we know, like, okay, for me, I know like Monday is the day I bench.
Mm-hmm.
So the next Monday is the day I bench again.
Mm-hmm.
So for some people, mentally speaking, that is better. You feel more organized simply because you know Monday is the day you bench, Tuesday is the day you squat. Like for me, Thursday is the day I do my pressing accessories, and Friday is when I do my deadlifts. So it's set for me in that way, and it really depends on your lifestyle and what other things you have around you. So
Mm-hmm.
if you can do a 10-day cycle, which is great, but you make sure that you are organized. That means you understand how that cycle works. And if you can't, then probably the week cycle is a better thing for you. So it
Yeah.
really depends from a person to person thing. Yeah. So that's what we were talking about. All right, let's move on.
Okay, let's move on to the last one. How important is stretching after lifting? This is a straightforward one.
Okay. Maybe we want to be more specific. You're talking about every like between sets, or are we talking about at the end of a workout?
I think after lifting, I think it would be after the session. Let's just go after the session because we've covered intra set stretching in one of our episodes, right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's discuss just both situations. Okay. So
Okay.
maybe you can take after workout first.
Okay. Oh, after workout. Okay. So here's the thing. Personally, for me, the one thing which I am looking to incorporate more into is stretching post exercise,
Mm,
simply because come to the realization that after years of accruing the amount of mass I've accrued, which is not a lot, I've become more restricted in a lot of my movements, and I feel that I can't get into certain ranges properly because of the limited flexibility in my tissue. So I feel that I should start incorporating stretching, and it will benefit me because number one, if I can get into a deeper stretch or deeper end range, it would contribute to hypertrophy. Not to say that hypertrophy is directly, not to say that stretching is directly linked with hypertrophy, but it's more of my ability to get my joint in that end range, especially my muscle fibers. And I feel also that it will help with like posing better. So that's my two primary reasons as to why I would incorporate. Stretching is good after workout. It's great. It's great to incorporate. I think a lot of people, if not everyone, should do it. but it's just my own personal bias.
Yeah, I think stretching has been demonized quite a bit in probably in the last 10-15 years, for it being like it's not good for hypertrophy because it kind of pulls the muscle out of position, and you kind of it takes a longer period of time for you to actually get back to the actin myosin connections to to be reestablished and so on and so forth. Now, again, after reading and learning from various other experts, I feel like I agree with you on that. Look, that
Mm,
stretching actually doesn't directly cause hypertrophy, but it definitely opens up the gateway for you to access more range of motion, hence muscle going through a better lengthened position where the growth goal is.
mm,
Where all the golden bits of growth comes from is when the muscle is in its lengthened position, as we have seen from research. So I do feel like stretching does aid in improvements in flexibility, and it also increase muscle flow, blood flow. It improves recoverability, and there are many ways that you can stretch. Is not always, a lot of people think stretching is just a passive thing. There's
mm-hmm,
actually an active element. Some people actually even say that you actually have to hold a certain amount of isometric contraction in order for the stretching to be effective. It's not just pull the muscle out of position, you know.
mm-hmm,
So there's a lot of mindfulness that goes into stretching. I'm not a stretching expert, by the way,
mm-hmm,
but you can look at contents by people like Range of Strength.
mm-hmm,
He actually does a lot of good videos about stretching, and the guy is insanely strong,
mm-hmm,
and he can do a split. Okay, so and I think for you as someone who's posing in those kind of things, being able to do a split is a huge plus point. I mean, it just gives you a whole lot of range when it comes to your posing, you know. So I think I think I've seen a lot of big bodybuilders with insane amount of flexibility, which
mm-hmm,
is great and gives you accessibility to things that nobody else can do.
mm-hmm,
So I think it really opens up your gateway. So my thing is mobility before, stretching after.
mm-hmm,
Do your mobility work before your workouts is to access the range of motion in the joints actively, and then the stretching is more of a passive active position that you have in for to aid recovery, improve flexibility, and so on. I think it works both ways. And then talking about in within between sets, okay, stretching, that is something I don't really do. And
mm-hmm,
I think I'm not gonna give you a dogmatic answer like no, you cannot do it. No, no, I don't think that is true as well. I just feel like if you want to do it, just don't overdo it. You want to hold
mm,
like a 5-10 second stretch, it's fine.
mm-hmm,
Just do not go beyond 20 seconds. That itself can actually impair the strength. That we know can impair your strength. And
mm,
you don't have enough time for you to do another dynamic workout or dynamic warm-up in order to get back your muscle strength and so on and so forth. You're already in the training program already. So you do not want to be doing that. I personally do not stretch between sets. All right. I don't think there's any benefit to that for me. But if you are someone who actually does that and you feel like it helps you, like kind of like after you do a bicep curl, you kind of pull your hand out of position, pull your hands out apart a bit, so you feel like okay, because during the contraction the pump gets really intense. You just want to, like, you probably feel like it's too intense. You just want to just kind of stretch out your arms a little bit just to get the relief of that pump a little bit, so
mm-hmm,
you can go into your next set. I think that's fine.
mm-hmm,
Some people, I see them stretching their pecs after like a 12-15 repetition chest press, for instance. You know,
mm-hmm,
I think that's fine too. But again, just don't go overboard because that can be detrimental. But I wouldn't say no, you cannot do it. I would just say it's really depending on person to person. But is it
okay.
going to give you an extra bit of strength and so on? Maybe not. I think you spoke about antagonist stretching before, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did.
Yeah, I think that was quite interesting. It had a
Mm,
quite interesting effect. That means if you do chest, you then stretch your back.
correct. Correct.
That was pretty interesting when I actually tried it out. It did give me 1 or 2 reps more after that.
What episode did we do that in?
That was a while back. I can't remember. I think
Uh,
that was when I could still do leg extensions full stack, which is before November. Oh,
before
on that front, I
November.
already can do leg extension 150 pounds already.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm struggling with 30 now. I can do 150 already. So it's
Uh,
the legs are slowly coming back.
okay. Yeah, but shit, I think that's one of the upsides of I can't believe we already done 129. This is be 129 episodes.
Yeah,
So we've done that many episodes. You can't remember which one we covered, but we did cover it. So if you
yeah.
guys listening out there want to check it out, do us a favor, find that episode and tag us
If you do find
if
it,
we do
yes.
find it, so that we can share it out. Okay, so
All
that
right.
is that concludes the roundhouse table discussion from Arvin and myself. We covered 5 questions. If you like this episode, please give us a review on Spotify. We are now on YouTube as well. Please give us a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. I'm not sure what the algorithm is, but I see a lot of YouTubers doing that. So just like, share, subscribe, mention. We'll try to get shorts, reels coming in as well in the near future. We just need to sort that out. And
Yeah,
yeah,
shots because I'm already doing reels and just
you're just taking snips.
yeah, just taking steps and putting it over to the other side. So
Yeah.
yeah, I could do
Okay.
that.
All right.
All right, man. Take care.
You too. Bye
See you in
bye.
the next episode.